Well, hey everyone, my name is Paul. I'm one of the teaching pastors here at Epic. We are in a series right now called Treat Yourself, and we have been talking about ways to treat yourself. So last week we talked about cultivating a great marriage. The week before that we talked about cultivating great friendships, and today we're going to talk about something that people sometimes avoid talking about, and that can be for any number of reasons, and that topic is depression. And so I hope that today we can talk about depression in a way that's going to be hopeful and helpful, so that we're not afraid to talk about it if we personally deal with it, and so that we can know how to support our family and friends if they're experiencing it as well. And so there are about 16 million American adults who will experience depression in a given year. And so what that means for us practically is that every single one of us knows someone, and more likely we know several people who are experiencing depression, and that is whether they have let you know that or not. And so these are our family members, these are our friends, these are our coworkers, and these are people who are right here, right now at our church. And so I want to be upfront with my goal for today. I mean, we're not going to be able to give everyone here all of the answers about depression. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this topic, and certainly we will not be able to fit all of that in, but I hope that you leave today knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you can do something about it, and knowing that there's hope. That's really what I hope for you. And I hope that this can be a starting point for people and for all of us to be a support and to be an encouragement to those people we know who are experiencing depression. So a couple of things before we get into this. Depression really falls under a larger umbrella of mental health. And mental health is essentially meaning our emotional, our psychological, our social well-being. Our mental health affects our ability to essentially function on a daily basis, to be productive, to have healthy relationships, and to really build resilience. And so by no means is depression the only aspect of mental health, but we felt that to be the most productive today and get the most out of our time, we wanted to get specific. So if you are struggling with any other aspect of mental health, just know this. I hope that it can still be helpful for you today, and that you can also, again, know that you are not alone and that there is hope. So we have actually set up a resources page for anyone who's looking for a little bit more information today. So you can go to epic.church/mental health resources. And so if you want to write that down, if you want to take a picture of that, make sure you do that. We will be referencing this at different points today. By no means is this a comprehensive or just catch-all kind of thing, but we hope it's a good starting point and a helpful thing if you need it. So much to talk about today, so much to get into, and honestly, I am nowhere close to being a mental health professional or an expert. So fortunately, I'm bringing in someone who is. And so can we, everybody at all of our locations, please give a warm welcome to our guest today, Lisa Dingle. Hey, Lisa. Hey, thank you so much for being here. I am pumped. I am really excited and really grateful that you would be here with us and share your expertise with us. Now, the funny thing is that someone at our church actually knows Lisa really well. Our location pastor at King of Prussia, Justin De La Cruz, has known Lisa for a very long time. And so I asked Justin if he would help us introduce Lisa to us. Check it out.
Lisa, let's see, where should I begin? I've known Lisa and her husband for over 20 years. They knew me as a kid growing up, they did our premarital counseling together, and they've been mentors throughout my entire life. And Lisa has put up with many of my young antics and shenanigans as a kid, like the time when we broke into her house so we could prank her, or when we barricaded her front door full of a wheelbarrow full of bricks, or we tried to throw her in a pool against her will. So many fun memories together, right, Lisa? But seriously, Lisa is one of the most kind, fun people that you'll ever meet. She has like 1 million degrees and certifications or something like that. It's all because she has a huge heart for helping people who are hurting. And so she and her husband are some of our most favorite people in our lives, and I'm excited that we get to learn from them today.
Sounds like a lot of fun memories for him. You clearly dealt with Justin for a very long time. I'm so sorry. And honestly, it probably has increased your credibility like a massive amount. So well done. You're still here.
Thank you.
Wow. Hey, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself, Lisa?
Sure. I'm so happy to be here with you all. Thanks so much for having me, Epic Church. And I actually live about an hour from here in southern Jersey in Cumberland County in the city of Millville. My husband is a pastor there, and I have two, almost teenagers. I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old.
You had to think about it for a second.
Yeah, he's almost there. Yeah, but so they're all having church over in Millville this morning, but I'm so happy to be here with you. So I've, in ministry, but I've also have a hat as a mental health professional. I have my master's in counseling psychology, and we've moved a lot, so I've had a lot of different positions, working in inpatient, outpatient, in residential settings for at-risk youth. Right now I work in a supportive housing program. So a lot of different hats, a lot of opportunities working with ages from children to teenagers to adults. So I'm really thankful, for all the opportunities God's provided for me to learn and grow, because I learn from my clients, really.
Yeah, right. And I'm thankful that you're here to share that with us. So This is going to be great. I want to get right into it. So in talking about depression, I feel like we overuse the word so much that it might be even difficult to know exactly what it is. And so, for example, we use depression to kind of cover just about everything. And I am really guilty of this myself, where it'll be a football game, we'll lose the football game, at the end I'll be like, this is so depressing. And that's not, it's kind of that overuse that we're dealing with when we talk about depression. So could you give us like a definition of depression? What actually is it?
Basically, it's when there is a pattern. There's a persistent, depressed mood that starts to affect like your daily life, like the things that you would normally do, like go to work or go to school. The functioning of your day, what you do in your day, that starts to become impaired because of this like heavy mood.
Yeah, and so I caught you saying persistent, and so is this different than just I woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, I had a bad day today? How long is persistent? Like 1 hour? 5 hours? How long is that?
Well, from a clinical perspective, typically if you've had a lot of signs and symptoms of depression for 2 weeks or more, then you're definitely having a depressive episode.
Okay, so 2 weeks. I think that's really helpful too, because again, I think a lot of us experience a bad day. I think a lot of us go through a quick period of, man, this was not good, I'm in a bad mood, I'm sad, I'm whatever, but to experience that persistently for 2 weeks or more, that's a one way, I guess you can tell that you're depressed. And I know that a lot of people, maybe we overuse the phrase, and then maybe we also, I know a lot of people who kind of think of it just as, oh, you're sad. So you're sad, I get sad, and I just get over it. So why can't you get over it? Or there might be people who maybe don't even have the language to know that they're experiencing depression. Maybe that's because of the family they grew up in. Like, we don't talk about this, or we don't cry, or we just push through. You know what I mean? I think some of us grew up in families like that. We just push through everything. Are there any other specific maybe symptoms or telltale signs that I might be experiencing depression, but I maybe didn't even have the language to recognize that?
Definitely, someone who's dealing with depression might tell you, I'm just really exhausted. I don't have energy anymore. Crying a lot, more easily overwhelmed, like everything is like a catastrophe. They might be eating more than usual or eating less than usual. They might be sleeping, usually sleeping with depression, it's sleeping more than usual.
Yeah.
And motivation is a big one. Normally, the things that bring you joy and happiness that you're motivated to do, that motivation sort of feels like it's just zapped out.
Yeah, right. So maybe persistent over a longer period of time, could be exhaustion. You said in maybe crying or things. But someone who maybe doesn't cry, could they be experiencing depression?
Oh, totally. You don't have to be having crying episodes to
right,
be
and I think that's
depressed.
important too, because I think some of us think we just like, I'm not a weepy person, so I don't deal with that, But you could still be experiencing depression. Maybe you're, like you said, things that normally bring you joy aren't bringing you joy. This is happening for a period of time. So they might be people here who are like, maybe, oh yeah, I don't get sad. I'm not a sad person, but that doesn't necessarily exclude you. But then also, just because you're sad for a day doesn't mean you. So I think that's helpful to like delineate those definitions and things like that. I know that some people think of depression as just an emotional thing. But are there other components to this? it can depression be physical? Can it be biological? Can it be spiritual? I mean, we think of it maybe just as sadness, but are there other elements to that? Are there other components to depression?
Definitely. There's a genetic component where it may be in your family history. It's always good to know that. There's a hormonal, it could be a hormonal situation, and that's why it's great to see the doctor, get your thyroid checked, see what's going on with, your hormones, your brain chemistry. There's so many things and connections and neurotransmitters. Lots going on in our brains, so many cells, and so there could be a chemical imbalance in your brain as well.
Yeah, and I think that's so fascinating to know too, because I know some people who might view it as purely just just an emotional component, but then there's potentially a neurological component to it, a hormonal component to it. Maybe, this is just and especially in church world, right? We just think, this is just a spiritual thing, just spiritual, and you just gotta pray it away. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I mean, is there a spiritual component to it in addition to these other things?
There is. I mean, when people are experiencing a lot of hardship and grief and stress, sometimes you can go through this place of feeling like you're in like spiritual darkness. And that leads to the situational component of depression, where there's been abuse or there's significant grief. There's so many stressors and so many things that come at people these days.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are someone then who's experiencing depression, and we certainly have people at our church who do, what can we do about it? Because again, I think that sometimes the go-to is just push through it. I need to muster the willpower and just push through it. And some of us, again, we grew up in families that are just like, we don't talk about this, we get over things, like we're going to move past it. So where can we start if we are going to do something about depression?
A big piece, and which is why we're doing this today, is just to have that self-awareness, to be able to acknowledge like what's going on with me.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to do that is to start to get in touch with your emotions. And I know for some people that's like, I don't do that. I'm too macho for that, or I've learned all my life to sort of stuff my feelings.
Right.
But really, when we can start to understand our feelings, we can be empowered and not be afraid of them.
Absolutely, and I know we had talked about this earlier this week, and on our resources page, so again, epic.church/mental health resources, there's a link a little bit later on that says Feelings Wheel, and you had introduced this Feelings Wheel to me, and basically the way it works is it's a wheel that has a bunch of words for your feelings to help you identify this, and the funny thing is, I needed this because in my relationship with my wife, she'll ask me how I'm feeling, and I literally have 2 words that describe my feelings. I'm either good or I'm okay. And that's about the range of my vocabulary when it comes to my feelings. And so if there's anyone else out here who that's you have like 2 emotions or 2 words for your emotions, that feelings wheel I think can be really, it actually was helpful. I literally pulled it up. I practiced this week with my wife. I pulled it up like, I am feeling confident, tired. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's other words here. Wow. And it actually was super helpful. But I think all of that in the name of, again, being self-aware. You can't know what you're fighting against if you can't navigate that, if you can't identify what you're going through. I think that's so important. Now, with feelings, that's one thing. Now, I know that depression can often affect the way that we think as well. Can you talk about that a little bit? What goes on with our thoughts, and what can we do about our thoughts and what we think when we're experiencing depression?
Definitely. Our thought life is a big piece of this, and you want to get to a place where you can learn how to think about your thinking. So starting to recognize, what are the things that are flying through my head? What am I thinking about? What am I, setting up camp in? Am I setting up camp in these negative thoughts? And, it's very important to realize that our thoughts are usually connected to our feelings. Usually you think something and then you feel a certain way. It's all connected. So being able to identify, the lies that are sort of flying through our heads as well. And then once you start to practice, you can get better at it. But, some of the lies that could be I'm not good enough, or I'm not important, or, I'm a bad this, I'm a bad that, mom guilt is a thing. I'm speaking to ladies, being I am a lady, but I know we as moms, we sometimes deal with mom guilt, and all these things that I should, I ought, and we put all this pressure on ourselves, and we sort of beat ourselves up sometimes. So when we can catch that, then we can identify, well, what is the truth? Like, what is the truth about the situation? What is the truth about what God's word says about me? And sort of break it down and put the truth in to counteract that lie.
Yeah, I feel like those can be almost like little red flags. Like if I hear myself saying this lie to myself, or I just hear this lie of like, this is never going to get better, I'm not good enough, I'm this, I'm that, or whatever, it can be that little signal to say, hey, this is not real, or this is not true. And I know that shame often plays a big role in depression. And again, this lie saying that you need to not talk about this and you need to just keep this to yourself. Can you talk about that a little bit, what shame does for us in depression and how we can counteract that?
Yeah, shame is that place where we're sort of, I'll talk about the difference real quick between shame and guilt. Like, guilt is like when you feel bad about when you did something wrong. Like, we all have that.
Yeah, I think that's healthy too,
yeah,
right? I did something wrong, that was not okay.
Yeah, like the Bible says, godly sorrow leads to repentance. It's good to have godly sorrow because then we change. But where shame comes in is when you start to be like, it's not my behavior that was bad, I am bad. Like, there's something wrong with me. I'm deficient. And it's just very like, sort of hammers you down into the ground, and it was shame that led, Adam and Eve to hide from God.
Yeah,
I think
that
so it
aspect
isolates
of
you and it really like pushes you down. And then it doesn't help that when you're dealing with depression, sometimes there's this attitude in society that if you're struggling with mental health, then somehow, you're less of a person, or you shouldn't be, or something's wrong. And so, unfortunately, there is a stigma with mental health that like compounds the shame that's already there. So why we're doing this is so we can shove shame, and we can shine the light on it and realize, let's see what it is, let's call it for what it is, and then let's get the help that's needed.
Yeah, we've talked about this before about how shame. We talked about this here before, where shame wants to keep you where you are, and one of the ways it keeps you where you are is by making you not talk about it and by isolating you. And we don't want to get help. We don't want to reach out. And so, especially with depression and that relationship to shame and all these things and the ways that it can maybe make you believe some lies, how important is it to get help and to reach out and to have support?
It's very important, especially if you're at a place where your life is starting to be really, negatively impacted. And you want to reach out, and you want to reach out to the people in your circle and let them know what's going on. And if you're at a place where you're not able to go to work, you're not able to go to school, you may need to reach out for professional help as well, because you might need that added component of that expertise and assessment to really like pinpoint what's going on.
Yeah, and I know that I've heard some variations of this kind of thinking before, and don't get me wrong, because we talk about this here all the time about how important community is and how important great relationships are and supportive relationships are and things like that. But then there's also this form of like, well, I have friends, so I'm not going to go seek professional help. I'm not going to do that. My friends should just be enough. Have you seen that? And can you still have a good community? And honestly, especially again in the church world, having a strong faith and also have it be okay to see a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much benefit in being connected to the body of Christ and being in life groups and having that circle. But sometimes it's more severe, especially if you're having thoughts of taking your life or thoughts of hurting yourself. Like, that's something that probably your friend is going to even probably advise you. We need to go get some help, and maybe they can even just go with you. And help you.
And I know tons of friends, and even myself, I've been to counseling, and this is not even wrestling with depression, and just to know that it is okay to go talk to somebody and to help you, like you said, be more aware of yourself and to kind of develop more tools to deal with some of these things. And so we want everybody to know that. For the record, we do, again, on the epic.church/mental health resources, we have a bunch of links for you if you're someone who wants to take the first step to seek professional help. All kinds of links for you to begin to do that, some places where you can find different therapists, a few different different branches and other ways to seek that, some tips for you to ask and things like that. Which, by the way, do you have any advice for people who are seeking professional help? What are good ways that we can do this? How can we engage that or start that, especially for people who are like, I don't know, and they're maybe afraid of the process or procrastinating maybe on the process, I don't know.
Well, just, recognizing that it's the therapists that help, it is, another person, like me, who just wants to help you and help maybe try to get to the bottom of what's going on. So it doesn't, hurt to ask around, ask friends, get referrals, talk to your, primary care doctor. If you have insurance, look and try to find who's in network. You can start there, and try to just hone in. And you can even ask questions, if do you work with depression? Do you work with this? If you're looking for a Christian counselor, you can ask them that. And it's okay to ask questions for the help that you need.
And I know a lot of people who have maybe tried counseling or tried therapy in the past, and then maybe they just didn't click with the therapist, or it just wasn't all they hoped and dreamed it would be. And so now maybe there's this feeling of, I tried it, I'm good. What would you say to someone who's in that situation?
Well, it depends on, how you're doing. But if you are still really struggling, then you don't want to stop, seeking help. And it's okay to try again, And I shared earlier, it's like with ladies, when you go to get your, go to a new hairstylist, or you go to a new person to cut your hair, and, if they didn't quite get the layers like you wanted them to get them, then you can go to somebody else. You can try, again, and that's okay, so because you need to still take care of yourself.
Right, you're not going to just give up on haircuts for the rest of your life because one didn't work out. Yeah, I think that's really important to know. You can keep on trying and keep on trying, and because it matters that much. If this aspect of your life, it's that important and it matters that much, so don't give up on that part of the process. And now I know that, so I think community, like you said, having support is one important thing. Potentially seeking professional help is another thing. And I was speaking to another counselor in preparation for this, and she shared this great idea about just viewing this as kind of a pie or sort of a pizza, I guess depending on what time of day it is and how hungry you are. But there's multiple pieces to that pie in terms of addressing mental health and addressing your depression. So community is one piece of the pie, and seeking professional help is another piece of the pie. There's no magic bullet that's going to just eliminate everything in one fell swoop. So what are some other potential pieces of the pie then beyond that?
Definitely exercise. I have learned that exercise, getting like 30 minutes of cardio 3 times a week can be equivalent to a mild antidepressant. Just exercising, getting your heart rate going, it can help to like cleanse your mind a little bit. Getting outside, getting outdoors, being in nature and God's creation can be very healing and therapeutic. Also, just being aware of your diet and what you're eating, that's also a big component. And then there's also, the piece of, evaluating, is there value to having some medication and seeing a psychiatrist who prescribes psychotropic medication, because sometimes people are so depressed that they're not able to help themselves and to jumpstart to do those things we've been saying. They're not able to connect with people because of the depression, or they're not able to get outside or do the things they want to do. So sometimes there's value of taking the medication. Sometimes there's people that are nervous about that, and that's understandable.
There's certainly a stigma on that, for sure.
But there's value to it, just like somebody who is diabetic has their insulin, or somebody who needs glasses wears their glasses. It's you're managing the symptoms, so that you can continue your daily life, while you continue to seek God for healing.
Yeah, and I think, even to that point, as you seek God for healing, and again, I think I love all the things that you just said, because again, if you understand that depression has multiple components, it has an emotional component, a potentially chemical, hormonal component, a physical component, a spiritual component, then when you think about that pie, there are so many pieces of the pie that can address those different components of it to give yourself the best shot to going through this, right? And so, and speaking of, on the spiritual component, I think especially in church world, again, since we are in church, a lot of times what you'll hear is just like, oh, well, if your faith was strong enough, then you wouldn't be dealing with this. If you were a good, strong Christian, then you would not be dealing with depression, and you should just be able to pray it away, and there's that. But I think hopefully the helpful thing for you guys in hearing Lisa talk about is there's multiple components to it. Also, though, we don't want to ignore the spiritual component to it. So what's like maybe something we can do what's the helpful role of prayer and things like that?
Definitely praying and pour out your heart to God. You can tell God how you feel. He's not afraid of our feelings, even if it's, angry that you're depressed.
Yeah.
Sometimes one feeling can lead to another. Pour out your heart to God and pray. He can handle it. He's not, afraid of our feelings.
Yeah.
And pour out your heart, spend time going to see what God's word says about you and what the truth is. And it's funny that you asked that, because I was reading an article last night that even talked about the fact that with all the brain imaging that's available today, that they were able to see that people who spend time in prayer and meditating, which for our purposes is in God's word, that they saw a significant improvement in like the way that their frontal lobe looked in the MRI, and that they had improved mood and better functioning.
Wow, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
so there's that whole approach to it. And then I know that you had said, even in seeking God for healing or something like that, what does healing even look like? Or what could it look like when it comes to depression? I mean, again, I think a lot of times we're looking for sort of that magic bullet to just be like, can I just pray and poof, it's gone? What does that even look like, healing?
Yeah. Healing is not always like a linear process. And by being linear, I mean, it's not like, okay, at week 1, you can expect this, and at week 2, you can expect this. Sort of like if someone has like their broken bone is healing.
Right.
The doctors can sort of tell you by this week, you can start to put pressure on it. By this week, you can walk with a walker and, et cetera. But with something like this, depression, grief, addiction,
Yeah.
the recovery can definitely, it's not linear, one step at a time. It's sort of up and down, all around. It can be back and forth. It's not like a straight line. It's more of like a squiggly line, and so it is a process.
Yeah, and I heard this before. This is one of the most helpful things I'd ever heard in my life about grief, is that it's not linear, and oftentimes it comes in waves. And what was super helpful for me in hearing that was that knowing that maybe years down the road and getting hit with a bout of grief, that's normal. It's normal. It's not like I had this massive setback. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's not something that was because I'm weak or something like that. It's just a normal thing. And I think I love that you pointed that out too, even about depression and some of these other things we go through. It's not linear, but it's really hard for us to get that, because I feel like we want everything to just be linear. Like day 1, this, by day 50, I want to be way better than I was. And then by day 100, same thing.
And I think it's important too for like family members, people in the support circle to also know that, because sometimes when you're with somebody who's depressed, like it's hard and you see them suffering and you just want them to snap out of it and get better.
Yeah.
And so you need to sort of have that patience to recognize, this is going to take some time.
Yeah, and speaking of, any quick things that you would advise us for those of us who maybe aren't experiencing depression, but we know someone who is, maybe some just do's and don'ts. So one of those things, have patience when it doesn't look linear for them. Anything else?
Definitely just letting that person know that you've got their back. If it's a coworker, be like, look, I'll help you get this thing done, because chances are they're struggling, and then they're also, on top of that, upset that they can't get their work done. So letting them know, look, I've got you, and if you've ever had someone say that to you, it's a wonderful thing to hear.
Yeah.
And also just remembering that this is an illness and that this is going to pass. Just like, a medical illness definitely does pass, like this is going to pass. It's going to shift at some point.
Right, and I think that's maybe the toughest thing to remember in the moment, is that this is going to pass, or it's not always going to be this way. And I think that being so huge, and for those of us who want to be a support and want to be an encouragement to love the people in our lives well who are experiencing depression, I think it's so helpful to remember that patience and to do our best to understand. And I think sometimes we try to just fix, and we tell them, like, we think people should just get on our level, and it's really hard. If you haven't been through it, it's hard to understand. So I think it's super helpful. Thanks. We are running out of time here. I want to make sure that just last question here for you, in terms of if there's people here who are experiencing depression, is what do you want them to know? If you have one thing to say, what would you say?
Is to don't give up. Press through. Psalm 23 talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, and it doesn't say that you stay there. It says that you go through and that you're going to get to the other side. And one of the lies and one of like the symptoms of depression is that hopelessness and feeling helpless and feeling like that I'm stuck and it's not going to get better. And that's one of the symptoms of it. So when you have that awareness, it's a symptom, just like a cough or a runny nose is a symptom of a cold. That is a symptom of the depression. And when you get the support you need, that there's going to be a shift. And there is hope if you just keep going.
Yeah, I think, wow. So hopelessness, remembering that it's just a symptom. It's not that there is no hope, but
it's not the end all or be all.
Yeah, you're experiencing this hopelessness as a symptom, and this will pass, and it's not going to be forever. This is not your forever. That's so helpful. In preparing for this, I was watching this lecture by Dr. David Pallison, who has written a lot about the connection between psychology and faith, and he has wrestled with anxiety himself, and he has treated who knows how many people with depression and who have experienced other forms of aspects of mental health issues. And he said something that made me stop, and I want to share it with you guys, and here it is. He said that anxiety and depression can be the door to the deepening of your faith. And there's another counselor I had spoken to in preparation for today who said essentially the same thing. And she said to me that our low points are where we often find and meet God. So, have you seen this to be true? Is this possible?
Absolutely. And I can't help but think of the scripture in Romans that talks about how our suffering produces perseverance, and our perseverance produces character, and the character produces hope.
Yeah,
and you might find that someone may go through like more than one bout with depression, but each time that you go through it, you get stronger and stronger and stronger, and you learn more skills, and your faith gets deeper, and you're able to start to help others and empathize with others in the middle of it. And through that whole process, your faith definitely grows, and you end up becoming closer to God.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's something that I have experienced in my lowest moments, and it's something that I know is the story of a lot of people here at our church, that oftentimes in our lowest moments, this is where we have found and discovered God, that it's not a closed door. It doesn't close the door on faith. It actually opens the door to a real faith, a genuine faith, a faith that's not just dependent on everything being like sunshine and butterflies and rainbows, but it's a real faith that can actually sustain you through the hard times. And then there's this weird opportunity, like a gift even, in those kind of moments where it's not just the moments where we meet God, but it's actually, like you said, it's actually a way that we can empathize more. It's something that suddenly allows us to have more compassion for each other. It actually allows us to love each other more deeply. I teach middle school writing, and I had a student this year who is really struggling with a particular issue, and it's been so tough for her and really tough for her family as well. And the cool thing about writing is that we get to explore things that are not just in the curriculum. We actually get to explore yourself, So I shared with my students earlier this year that my father has cancer, and that I might have to miss school from time to time because of that. And all of my students were just so awesome about this. They wrote my dad notes and cards and made him posters and videos and stuff like that. So they are all amazing. But this girl that I mentioned, she wrote something, and we had these conversations because she had written a little something, and I noticed where she had talked about how she saw herself in the future wanting to help other people who have the same struggle that she has. And when I read this thing, I called her up to my desk, and we had this little conversation, and we talked about how, hey, there's this thing sometimes where you go through something and it stinks, and you would never sign up for it. Like in a million years, you would never want this, you would never sign up for it. But in that, there's this gift. And the gift is that you can now see other people who are hurting because you're hurting. And you have this ability now to love them in a way that only you can because of this thing that you went through. And so in the midst of this stuff going on with my dad, this girl wrote something, and I actually want to share it with you guys today, if that's all right. And this is what she wrote to my dad. So she said, "Dear Mr. Heggie," and that's what she's talking about my dad. That's what they call me too, but they're talking about my dad here. "I know how hard it is to have a challenge. I also have a big challenge in my life too. I have," and she tells us what she has, "we can fight our challenges together. what has helped me is writing poems. You could try it too. I like that part. Here's a poem I've made just for you. I hope you like it. I know it's hard to have a challenge. I know it's hard to have a struggle. I know it's hard to have a problem. I know it's hard to find your strength. I know it's hard to find your courage, but it's okay to have a challenge. It's okay to have a struggle. It's okay to have a problem. It's okay to be weak. It's okay to be scared. It's okay so you can fight this challenge. You can push it off and away. You can be strong like a lion. You can be courageous. You can turn your problem into a gift. Your challenge will help you with bigger challenges in your life. You can be thankful for your challenge. You can fight like a tiger. You cannot let it knock you down. You can be audacious. You can. Yes, you can. And I read that, and first of all, I had to tell her to go away because I'm having a moment. You're gonna give me some space. But I thought, man, if this 13-year-old girl can find hope in her struggle, and if this 13-year-old girl can discover the gift of being able to see someone in their pain and be able to have compassion on them and love them in a way that she wouldn't have been able to do before, man, so can you. And so can I. And I want you to know this, and this is something that I want you to know that this is what we are praying for you, that you will discover that God is not only working despite your depression, that He is working in and through it as well. That He's not only working despite it, but He is working in and through your struggle as well. That because of what you are going through, you will be able to have a deeper faith and you'll be able to love people in a way that you never could have before. I want you to know that God is walking with you in your struggle, but He is also opening the door to a deeper faith, into deeper love, precisely because of it, if you're open to seeing it. So today I want you to know this, that you are not alone, and this is not forever, and this is not for nothing. Your struggle is not for nothing, and that there is hope for you. Let's pray. Father, we love you. We thank you. God, I thank you for every single person who is here, who is struggling in some capacity. I pray that you would meet them right now in the midst of their struggle, that you could remind them that you are walking with them, and God, that they could discover a deeper faith, a stronger faith, a more real faith, that they can discover hope, that you would remind them this is not forever, remind them that they're not alone. God, we trust you and we believe you that you are with us in this. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. So I just want to remind you guys really quick that we have that page set up as a resource for you, epic.church/mental health resources. And can we give one last big thank you to Lisa?